Hi, my name is Hannah, and in this video I'm going to be talking about what biofouling is and why it's important to have knowledge about it. But first I'm going to give 5 examples of marine species and what kingdoms and phylums they belong to. First, I have the sea anemones. They're in the kingdom Animalia and in the phylum Cnidaria. A common trait is that they have tentacles and stinging cells. And the Nordic species is the Metridium senile. And the next group are the snails. They're in the kingdom Animalia and in the phylum Mollusca. The common traits are that they are found in water and on land, and they have shells. The Nordic species is Littorina littorea. And then we have the sea stars. They're in the kingdom Animalia and in the phylum Echinodermata. They have 5 arms and suction cup feet so that they can attach to surfaces. And the Nordic species is the Asterias rubens. Next we have the clams. They're also in the kingdom Animalia and in the phylum Mollusca. Common traits are 2 shells that close around the body, gills, and a foot to move around with. The Nordic species is Mytilus edulis, the blue mussel. Lastly, we have the amphipods. They're also in the kingdom Animalia, but they're in the phylum Arthropod. Their traits are jointed appendages, segmented body, and chitinous exoskeletons, which means that they have their skeleton on the outside of their body. And the Nordic species is the Caridia. So I'm going to talk about biofouling. Biofouling is the accumulation of algae, microorganisms, plants, and animals on wetted surfaces. These organisms travel with boats to new places where they can have a crippling effect on the environment. These new species that affect the environment are called invasive species because of the way they interfere with the other organisms' natural habitat. As I mentioned, invasive species come to new environments carried either in ships' ballast water or on the ship hulls. And due to the expansion of trade and marine traffic, the problem has become intensified. The accumulation of algae and organisms lead to more friction, which makes the boats travel slower through the water, which can lead to the boats using more fuel. The spread of invasive species has, according to the International Maritime Organization, become recognized as one of the greatest threats to the ecological and economic well-being of the planet. The invasive species are damaging to the biodiversity by, for example, spreading new diseases, or changing the trophic levels, which is also known as the food chain. This is an issue which doesn't only affect the ecosystem, but can also affect the cities and the people and places where this is occurring. For example, tourism in coastal areas are often dependent on the marine life, and if the biodiversity suddenly changed, it could have devastating consequences on the tourism income. The invasive species also cause great damage to the marine and fishing industry. Because of these potentially devastating effects on the society, it is important for the affected areas to have knowledge about biofouling to be able to prevent and take actions if invasive species come to disturb the natural ecosystem. Developing countries are especially affected by the damage on the fishing industry because their reliance on the export market to be able to sustainably have an economic growth. Therefore, it is important to prevent the organisms from growing on the boats and to be able to use less fuel and also reduce the spread of invasive species. To prevent biofouling under ship hulls, an anti-fouling system is commonly used, which refers to paint, surface treatment, or devices used to control the growth of unwanted species. Some coatings or paints do contain substances which can affect the marine life, such as the metal tributylatin, also known as TBT. This can change the reproductive organs in snails, like the Littorina littorea I mentioned earlier. To date, the usage of TBT has decreased, but it is still important to take note of the content in anti-biofouling paints so we don't kill marine life species. So in conclusion, biofouling is something we should prevent because it damages both the marine life, ecosystems, and economies and tourism in countries that greatly rely on the marine life.